Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well. As a developer, we get asked to build tools for our companies all the time. In this video, I want to show you one of those tools. We'll be building a SendGrid send email form and also an endpoint where we can send it via API. And I want to talk about some of the advantages of, instead of building this locally, building it on WayScript X. Let's jump right in. So let's take a quick look at the services that we're building in this video. First, you've already seen this form, and what we can do with this form is we can pass in a email address, a subject, and then contents to send. Finally, you may see this API token at the bottom, and what this allows us to do is selectively control who has access to our tool. So we can create these tokens and then pass them out to members of our team so they can use it. And it prevents anyone who doesn't have a token from using our service. This is pretty cool because as the developer, I can go and get one API key from SendGrid. Then I can disperse the API key through these tokens that I can create on WayScript X. So I don't have to go to SendGrid every time someone needs to use my tool. Instead, I can manage it all within WayScript X. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But now that we have all this information in, we can submit this form and we see success. So we should have a new email from my SendGrid account sent to me, which we do. We can also, if we don't want to use this form, what we can do is send a simple post request. In this little bit of code here, I'm just passing information to that same URL that my form is connected to, and I can execute this. I see success is in my terminal, so that means we should have another email in my inbox that is there from that post request, which we do. You could imagine that this is super useful if you're building this tool for your marketing team, because now they can use a simple form and send out emails. Or you could write them a little bit of code to programmatically send them emails through a post request. And like I said, if the user doesn't have a token to your service, let's make this anything different, and they try to submit to use your service, what happens is they get back an invalid token contact system administrator, which would be you as the developer. So hopefully you see the power behind the system. We can have one API token through SendGrid to my account. Then I can pass that token off by creating new tokens on WayScript X for other people to use. That way I don't have to log into SendGrid every time someone joins my team. Instead, I can just make all of these tokens in one place and distribute them from here. This is one of the reasons why WayScript X is great for building these types of services. And let's talk about a few more reasons with a diagram. So let's talk some numbers. In 2019, the State of the API report asked businesses how important APIs are to their business. 55% said critical. That number in 2020 grew all the way to 83%. So how we interact with APIs has never been more important. Traditionally, how a developer might make a tool such as this one we're creating in this video, they might make a Flask server or a Node server, host it somewhere, and then directly interact with an API. And this works, but there's a lot of reasons why we might not want to do this. And WayScript X tries to solve those pain points. By inserting WayScript X into this picture, we have one place where every dev can write their code. It doesn't matter if you're a Python developer writing a Flask application or a JavaScript developer making a Node server. It can all live inside of WayScript X in one central location. This can exponentially increase collaboration by having cross-programming language services interacting with each other. Additionally, by inserting WayScript X, we get access to a lot of different metrics and services for our applications that we develop there, such as being able to observe who runs our application and when, and also being able to go back and audit any of those logs that we need. We can check process status and so much more. Along with each of those analytics, metrics, and tools that we have with each developed application on WayScript X, we also get peace of mind knowing that the infrastructure is taken care of. WayScript X auto-scales any of the instances that you're using on it, so that means we don't have to worry about traffic or anything else. Our application will just work and we don't have to worry about it. As you can tell, I'm pretty excited about WayScript X, and hopefully you are too after watching this demo. So let's get started. Let's build out this service and get it working. To start creating our service, we need to sign into WayScript X. We can use the web application or an application downloaded to our computer. I'm using the web app here, but feel free to use your own local version of the app. We can sign in with a Google account. A WayScript X workspace allows us to work together with our team. What I'll do here is create a new one and then click on Create. And that will give us a new workspace to work in. The first thing we see here is something called a layer. What a layer is a pre-configured environment that makes it super easy to set up these types of tools. There's more information linked down below if you want to check it out, but getting started here, we'll click on New Layer and then click on Create. This puts us inside that pre-configured environment where we can start building out all the logic we need for our tool. All the steps to setting up this service and all the other services in our videos are found on a GitHub repository where we can just follow along to the README. This is linked down below too, and it has all the steps that we need to take to set this up. So if you want a written tutorial, you can find it here, but I will go through this in a video format to make it easy. Our first step is to upload all the files from that GitHub repository into our layer, and I'll do that now. Now that we have each of these uploaded, I'll briefly talk through what each file does, that way we know what's going on. Since I'm creating this as a Flash server, then we need an app.py file, and this is what we'll execute whenever it comes time to deploy our application. In this app.py, I have my accepted tokens, and these are the tokens that we need to pass out to individuals to use. In this example, we'll just say sample token, and this will be the value that someone would pass to the form or using the post request. And then we can also add more tokens if we want to. So I'll add sample token 2. Whenever you sign up for SendGrid, the email address that you use to sign up will be this address here. We need this email address so we can successfully use their API to send emails. Now that we have these variables inside of our Flask application here, we see that we have routes and then specific things to return to the user given each route. So our homepage here will just return a form.html file from our templates directory. Our endpoint that's actually doing something is our send email endpoint, and we're accepting a post request here either from a form or from JSON, and then we'll use a little bit of logic to send an email using the SendGrid SDK. That logic to send these emails lives inside of another file called logic.py. This logic here isn't too important, it's just sending an email. But one important thing to note is that we're grabbing a SendGrid API token from our environment here. And we'll need to create this in a .secrets file. And we can do that by clicking this plus sign at the top and then choosing .secrets. We need to make sure that we match SendGrid API token or change this value to whatever we put in to our secrets file. So we need SendGrid API token, and our value will come from SendGrid. This is the cool part where we can actually store our SendGrid API token inside of our secrets and have it encrypted. To get that token, we'll need to go to SendGrid. So I will pull that over now and create a new token for this tutorial. This token is what I need here, and I will bring that into my value of my .secrets file and paste it here. Once we have that, we can click Add Secret down here in the bottom right, and that should populate a value here, which it does. And this is the value that we'll need to actually send emails and authenticate ourselves to SendGrid so we can use their services. Now that we know how the system works and it's all set up, the last thing we have to do is to actually host it on some endpoint. And we can do that by using a deploy trigger inside of WayScript X. We'll go to .triggers in the top left and then click on New Trigger. Here, we'll select Deploy, and you can see that that gives us a URL that we can access our application on. Our application isn't hosted just yet. We need to make sure that our command to run runs our Flask application. So we'll put that in here as our command to run. This command to run is linked down below, but all we're saying is Flask run, and then we're choosing a port. We'll make sure that port is the same in our port column, and finally we'll click on run. And what that will do is give us a new process that should be running here, and we should expect a status of running because we've ran this deploy trigger, which it is. If we need additional logs on our process, what we can do is click on the status, and it will give us more information here. Now that we have everything set up, everything we've built so far is within a dev state inside WayScript X. So what we'll have to do is deploy it so we have a deployed state of our application. We can do that by clicking deploy over here to the left and then click deploy. We'll confirm it and then save all unsaved files. Once we've deployed our layer, that means we now have two environments. We have a dev state and a prod state. The dev state is the one in which we can edit, and the prod state is just there in a read-only view. We can switch between the two layers by going to the top left corner, and currently we're in the dev state. So what we can do is switch to our prod state by clicking this arrow and going to prod. What this does is pull up our layer in a read-only view, so we can still access all these files and see what's going on, and we can also visit our prod state endpoint by clicking on the .triggers file and then going to the link provided by our deploy trigger. So we'll click on this and then pull open our form. So now let's test out our brand new form that we just created. We'll test it out and then we'll use a post request to send the next email. Starting out, let's send myself an email. Hello from the web form. And now we can pass in some HTML content to send. On the web form, this may not be the most useful thing. However, in our next example, when we use a post request, we'll read in a file so we can send something prettier. In this example, we'll just type up some HTML code. Hello from the form. Then this token needs to match the tokens that we put into our app.py, which should be included here. So ours is sample token and sample token 2. We'll need to use one of these to make it work. We will say sample token and then hit submit. It's very small to see here, but we get back a message of success. And then let's open my Gmail account and we can see the results. So we successfully submitted that email from this form. Awesome. So we know how to do it from the web form, and now let's go and use a post request to do this. So what we'll do is we will close this, and now let's go back to our dev state of our environment. What we'll do is include one more file. So we'll say new file. We'll say something like send post request.py, and we'll put in all the logic we need to send a post request to that URL. What we'll need here is inside of that GitHub repository that we got all these files from, and we'll need to open this example send email request. We'll copy this and we'll use this in our example post request. The only things that we need to change here will be the token. Ours was sample token, and then the URL. So we will get rid of that and we'll copy this URL from our deploy trigger endpoint and go and paste it here. At this point, this should function and we can send an email. And to execute a Python script, we can either click this play button in the top right, or what we could do is go down to our terminal, and just like how you can locally, we can execute a Python script by saying Python send post request.py, and we'll execute this. And we see success, verifying that this went through, and looking at Gmail, it did. Awesome. So we have our tool working. And at this point, the demo on how to do this is pretty much done. But I want to leave you with some more ideas on how you could use this service for yourself. So I want to take us through a couple more use cases on how we can use this and why it might be helpful to you. The first use case is let's take a look at how we can read a file, an HTML file in this case, to send in this email. So in this specific example, let's say that we're working in a marketing team and we want to send some marketing email out to someone. But we don't just want to send contents of hello. Instead, we might have something a little bit more polished inside of an HTML file. So let's read an HTML file and then send it as our email using the service. Starting out, we'll create a new directory and we'll say new folder, and we'll say something like marketing templates. Inside this, let's just create a dummy file. We'll say demo.html. And then let's put in some contents into this file. So we'll say from demo.html as a heading. And you can imagine that this is more polished than this, but in this example, we'll keep it simple. So now what we need to do is within our send post request, we'll need to read in that file. And we can do that by using Python. A couple of lines of Python code, and we'll change it. So we're saying with open, we'll need the path to our HTML file that we want to access. In this case, it's in the marketing templates directory. So marketing templates, and it's called demo.html. Now we're setting contents as the red file. So here in our contents to send, what we'll need to do is change this to contents. And it's as easy as that. So we've read in a file and we can send it using this tool. Let's send this again. We see a success message, and we can pull over my email and see from demo.html. Perfect, so we know how to read in a file and how to send it using our newly made service. At this point, let's take a look at how we could send this automatically. Let's say that we have something that we want to monitor and to send ourselves an email every day at the same time using it. We can do this using the post request or by just using this script that we've created here. We'll opt for using the WayScript system and just set this up on a cron trigger within the same layer. And I'll show you how to do that right now. So cron triggers work very similar to how deploy triggers work. We have a command to execute, but the event that triggers the execution is different. In a deploy trigger, what triggers the execution is someone visiting our endpoint. With the cron trigger, the execution is triggered at a certain time or at certain intervals of time. And we'll set this up now. So let's go to our .triggers file, and now we'll say new trigger. We'll say cron trigger, and our command to run, if we just want to use this Python file we created, will just be the terminal command that we used. In our case, that terminal command is python send post request.py. And we can trigger this every hour, every 10 minutes, minute, or custom cron syntax. And to show you some custom cron syntax, we'll choose that option. Let's say that we wanted to send this every day at 8 a.m. The way that cron works is it kind of goes backwards. So the first position is minutes and the second position is the hour. In our case, if we want to do this every day at 8 a.m., we'll say 08. Perfect. And now we can run this. By clicking run, it should go ahead and send it regardless of the time that we put in. So to verify that it's working, let's go back. We'll refresh this. And we have that email. But in this current state, our cron trigger will not work every day. We're just in a dev environment. To make this work, we'll need to go ahead and deploy our tool again. So let's click on deploy and click deploy again. And that will cause this automation to happen every day. You could imagine that just instead of a static template that we're sending in demo.html, we could go and get information using a post request or a GET request to some site and then send that as an email to ourselves. Or we could look at a database and many more options to make this tool very viable. And that's it for this one. Hopefully you see how powerful WayScript X is and how we can interact with it in different services to create very powerful tools. If you have any questions or comments, as always, please let us know and our team will be happy to help you out. Until next time.